when it comes to art, I think that a lot of us, especially the internet, has really co-opted this movement where, oh, you don't have to really learn anything. Like that's all institution. That's not true. Like if you respect an art, I don't care what you do, you have to respect it and you have to show up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Girl, Let Me Tell You. I'm your girl, Glorelys Mora.
What's up? I'm Jessica Flores.
Hola, soy Ivana Rojas.
And we have a very special guest in the building today. Someone that I look up to, someone that I feel like is creating history in the comedy community, and someone that I needed some East Coast representation here on this couch, too. So I want to welcome someone that I look up to, a great comedian, Aida Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Right, Aida, tell us a little. I mean, I know all about you because I be all up in your DMs and in your world and on your business. But tell everyone on Fears who you are.
So my name is Aida Rodriguez. I'm a woman who happens to be a stand-up comedian. I'm a writer, a producer, a director, and an actor. And I don't call myself an activist because I feel like that's corny. I'm actually in motion to make things happen, to create equity and fairness to people of color, brown people, black people.
I love that. So I want to get into it. I've done Aida's birth chart, and she is a Virgo.
Virgo, and how do you feel about that, girl? Because I know you've expressed yourself about Virgos.
I have expressed. I just want to say I love Virgos. No, my mom and my therapist, they're both Virgos, and I learned a lot from Virgos. I will say, every sign has, their thing, but something that you can always take away from a Virgo is self-love, is choosing yourself, is getting it right. I think one thing about Aida, I have opened up for her. And I will say, I don't want to say this because I was late today, but I was late. I was a little late for opening up for her. And she, took me to the side. And I really appreciate that because when you're a young comic, sometimes you're just kind of doing things and you're just like running around the city. But she took me to the side and she, told me like, you are a comedian, but you need to be on time. You need to be professional. You need to make sure that you're doing your work. And that's something that you could always take away from a Virgo is
tough love.
Getting that tough love and getting that shit correct. So I know we were talking
that's why she hates me.
No. I hate my mom too, but I love you too, Mom. No, I just grew up in a complicated Virgo household. But I know that I'm really excited because every time I bring Aida up to the stage, I'm like, oh, Dominican comedian. But Aida is also Puerto Rican. I love Puerto Ricans too. So tell us a little bit about your background. You are Puerto Rican, Dominican, and I think one of your family members was from Cuba too, right?
My stepfather's
Your
from Cuba.
stepfather. So she is
all the Caribbean.
Right, the Caribbean.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
it was so funny.
Did I say something wrong?
No. Actually, let's talk about it.
We're like, okay, we don't really interact too much with people from the Caribbean, right? We're from the West Coast, and I'm Mexican, Colombian, you're Colombian. So I'm sorry. When it comes to the Caribbean, like countries, I really don't know. So
that's all funny because Colombians are very close. They're very Caribbean. They actually are one of the groups of people that people like Puerto Ricans say, oh, they can actually dance salsa. There's a lot of great salsa music that comes from Colombia. We all the same. They just dropped us off in different places. And when the sooner we accept that and learn it, the better it'll be. The funny thing is, I do want to say the reason why I pulled you to the side was not because of me, but because of the institution that we were working in.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure that you didn't ruin your opportunities with them because they are harder on us.
I will say that. And I wanted to talk right now, like as I'm rising in my career, I'm still pretty young in comedy. I'm excited. I'm still like learning so much. But I am now, with each level, with comedy and like we talk about all of our careers all the time, some of it is subjective, like measuring success and like you start getting into these rooms you wanted to be in and getting on projects. And it's just kind of scary. Like, how do you still, especially as being a trailblazer in the scene, how do you still keep your voice without trying to adapt to the industry? Because, the industry will tell you, you need to tell less jokes about, being Latina. You should focus on this or whatever. Like, how do you still maintain your authenticity with a space that's telling you all the time, like, you're doing it wrong? Because we don't exist in comedy, right? Like, now we are, like, Aida is at the top of that, I guess, road, but it's like I don't exist in comedy. People don't like Dominican, Yeah. So I'm like, how do you still maintain your authenticity with everyone telling you to kind of change or like be more, whatever, I guess, formal or what? I mean,
that's hard.
Whatever that looks like in the industry.
Well, I will say this. I thank you for giving me my roses. it's so funny because I get a lot of people to tell me, hey, you know what you mean to me. People cry at my shows. You are our Latina, and I still get paid less than everybody else, right? And it's just not me just saying this. We confirm it. My male counterparts will send me what their quotes are for certain clubs, just so that I'll know, so that I can use it as a negotiating tactic. A lot of the white male comics from New York who are my friends will say, this is what the club is paying me, so just know, because you have a bigger following than me. So and they will still lowball me. Like I did a tour. I got paid for the entire tour. With one of my friends got paid for one show to do the same exact tour, and so. You know, it's very grounding to hear. I will say this. I've always been myself in comedy. I started comedy as an adult, and I've always been myself. The business had to catch up to me. I never, ever decided that I was going to try to be somebody else. I talk about whatever I want to talk about in stand-up. I lean into sometimes harder stuff because I do talk about social and political stuff where, you know, a lot of women, like they would say to me, hey, you know, as a woman, you should stay away from sex and don't talk about low common denominator stuff and don't be hacky and don't be doing this. But then the most successful comedians and the highest paid comedians who are women are all dirty comics, you know, and it's not like, I'm not hating on them, I'm just pointing out the truth. Like Amy Schumer, Whitney Cummings, Sarah Silverman, they talk about whatever they want. They use their white privilege to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And they are elevated and respected and paid for it. Whereas as a woman of color, when you talk about those things, they try to reduce you to being, you know, low common denominator, like, oh, here goes a woman talking about sex, when we have to hear about men talk about sex all the time. And a lot of the jokes are low common denominator jokes. So I just always said, I'm not gonna allow myself to let anybody tell me who I need to be in this space, because it ain't never right. Richard Pryor used to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about. George Carlin was a completely different comedian who talked about and evolved from different places. Those are my comedy heroes. Those are who I think are the greatest comedians ever. You know, and I look at like someone like Bill Burr, who is my favorite comic. I just think, you know, like these people are being their most authentic selves, and you are experiencing life with them as they evolve. I'm no different, and so I just always say, I'm gonna be me. You are that way. So that is why people are bothered by you in comedy.
They do be bothered.
Your level of confidence, and they attack your legendary and all that stuff, because you go on stage and are your authentic self. You're just working on mechanics.
Yeah, I am. I'm inside. I wanted to talk to you, but I don't want to like hog up. I'm hogging up the microphone. I don't know if you ladies have questions. I also wanted to. I feel like right now, like the first 5 years of my career was just like being bookable, right? So like when you're a woman of color, they're not booking you. They're like, I don't know you, whatever. You don't have the followers. You don't have this. So the first 5 years, I just wanted the space to work. And now like I'm really starting to, I want to take the next couple of years to just like work on like, what is my story? Like, what do I really want to share with my audience? And that's kind of like changing for me now. I focus a lot on relationships, and just like I was learning the jokes, and now that I know how to make a joke. And I feel like when you're in the audience, like, oh, that's funny. But I'm like, no, that was horrible. Like, that's not even well written. The structure's not there. So I'm like, now I'm working on like the inside of, you know, this.
What I'll say to all of you is, regardless if you're a comedian, an actor, a host, a producer, people buy into you and then they buy into what you're selling. But it is your responsibility to understand the science of what your art is. Because what we do as comedians, actors, hosts, whatever it is that's creative, the art part of it is undeniable. We all know that there's an art to it, but there's also a science. There are mechanics and technique. And if you want to be at the top of your game, it is your job to go, you know, Viola Davis and Meryl Streep don't win awards because, you know, they get on screen and just emote. They technically know how to work a camera. They know how to deliver the scenes. Comedians are no different. Writers are no different. You know, it is important to understand the science, especially us, because they don't expect us. They think that we just show up to be the payasos, the resident clowns, to be like, oh, she's so crazy. She gonna say whatever she gonna. No, I have something to say. There's a process that went into this. There is a science that went into this. I honor it. I respect it, and you're gonna respect me for it. And so You know what I mean? When it comes to art, I think that a lot of us, especially the internet, has really co-opted this movement where, oh, you don't have to really learn anything. Like that's all institution. That's not true. Like if you respect an art, I don't care what you do, you have to respect it and you have to show up. Yes. It's not that we don't respect internet comedians. Internet comedians are really good at being internet comedians. That's a science.
And that's something I'm struggling with. I cannot, for the life of me, I'm like, I don't know. I can't make no internet joke. I don't know what to put the little sounds.
It's like internet actors. They have like 7 or 30-second clips, and they have thousands and millions of followers. And then you're going to school for 4 years, and you're studying in the academy, and you're waiting to make a movie. And it's like, wow, that person's has more success than I have, and I've been in the game for like 10 years. Like, but that's just kind of how you value education, like old school mentality and new school mentality.
They're just good at being internet people, like you know, and that's a science unto itself. I don't even diss it. To be able to, I look at some of these videos and I'm like, that's so creative to edit this, to capture this in this amount of time. And I give you that respect. Now I need you to respect the fact that that special that I put up on HBO Max, it took me 6 years to write that special. And I know people are like, oh, people write specials and they got specials every other year, but they're not special. You know, like,
special. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld said that anyone that's writing a special under a year, that's not like a fleshed out. Like it takes time to write a special.
I didn't know it took a special took 6 years. And again, because I'm not in the comedy world, I don't know what the protocol is for like, I've seen specials, I watch them all the time, but I really truly don't think about how long it takes to write a show that long and that well put together.
And I had to redo it. Like it took me 6 years to write it and to perform it, to perfect it, to take the jokes. I had jokes that I had done before to really exhaust the joke, being able to tag it, to give it life, to expand it, to breathe into the joke. And then I had to change some of it because COVID happened and I had to address what was happening in the world. And that was a process, doing jokes on Zoom, doing jokes with people with masks on, doing jokes with a limited audience because we couldn't have a full audience. Like that, you know, there's a privilege in being super rich and super famous and being able to come out with a comedy special when people already love you and most people will accept whatever you have to say because they are being affected by the celebrity factor. But those of us who don't have that have to actually show up and be a real comic.
You said that you got into comedy in your adult life. So what inspired you to get into comedy? What propelled you there? And how did you, and now you know you're one of the biggest comics that we know, especially the Latinas. How did you get here at this point?
So, you know, I wanted to be a comedian when I was little, and my mom was like, they were like, that was corny, because they were like,
your mom calling you corny, like,
no, because they'd be like, women, una niña, they'd be like, who's gonna marry you? Nobody wants to marry no goofy girl. And I'm watching Lucy, who got a husband and a TV show and rich and successful, coming from a family of, my family that I grew up with is my Puerto Rican family, and I don't call them immigrants because they're not immigrants, they are American. And we have to stop using that language when it comes to Puerto Ricans because it emboldens white supremacy to continuously, you know, X out Puerto Ricans. So, and if you're watching and you didn't know that, Puerto Ricans are American. So but my family still has that mentality where they want you to be a lawyer, they want you to be a doctor, they want you to be something that is, to them, what they consider tangible. And so me saying I want to do comedy because I had learned about Richard Pryor little. Like my uncle used to let me hear his stuff with him. I would get in trouble for it. It took me a while. It actually was, I was doing a birthday roast with Chris Spencer. A friend of ours was like, can you guys roast me? Because I was always roasting. And then
I would hate to be in a roast battle with you. Oh my God, you would
honestly same.
I dare you. No,
you're better at it than me.
No, they called me mean. I said some shit. It was crazy.
Oh, I'm not a roaster, like because that's what I have my joke, because I was like, oh, y'all really going in for like the jugular. Like I started talking about people's dead babies and all kinds. I was like, I'll go get my gun. Like what? You know, like I don't roast, but it was like a birthday roast, and he said to me, Chris Spencer was like, hey, you're a comedian. Like you should go do an open mic. And he was like, just try it. If you don't like it, he's like, I know it when I see it. And you know, he's worked with Jamie Foxx and Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart. So I went and did it, and I never stopped. I just started doing it. It was a hobby for me at the beginning.
Okay. What kept you going? Because I'm sure that, you know, you maybe had to stay, like, I don't know, like you had your journey, like what kept you going? Like,
What inspired you to keep
the scientist in me. So the first show I did, I got a very good response, which happens very common. Like the first time,
first beginner's luck.
It's a
It's a thing in comedy.
Right.
And it's adrenaline.
Let's try it.
Yeah, you'll do it for the first time.
We might have
do
to
it.
get you up at the end of the episode.
I think everybody should do an open mic.
Yeah.
I do recommend it for everyone because I tell this to my friends and anyone who asks. Like, it wasn't until I started doing comedy I started loving myself. Like, I never felt like the power to take care of to do my own narrative. I would always let other people come up with their own narratives. And when I did stand up, I was like, no, this is who I am. You're not gonna use this against me, and I'm gonna make a joke out of it. And anytime I feel in a strong emotion, like I wanna fight somebody, I'm like, that's a good joke. Wow. I'm gonna put that shit in the set.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, like I was a lot growing up, and I was like, if you meet all of my friends in high school, like we always knew that you were gonna be something. I was just too much. But I was able to really own my story and like who I am in comedy. So even if you don't want to be a comedian, it's great to learn and to put yourself just 5 minutes. Like I got the most confidence. Once I did my set, I was like, yo, I'm gonna be a legendary comedian. And then I started going. I think, and this happens a lot.
5 minutes is too long though.
You're gonna
die up there.
It's like a minute and then I'm
But she was saying that's your story, and you have a story right before you became a comedian. You have a whole story which you can read about.
Right.
Legitimate Kid, a memoir, her upcoming book that's coming up that we would love to hear about right now because it's a big accomplishment. You wrote it yourself.
I wrote ghostwriter. I wrote my book.
No ghostwriter.
No disrespect to anybody. Yeah. No disrespect.
But this is really your baby.
That's a t-shirt.
Really all you.
Tell us all about
I'm like a t-shirt bitch. I put that on a t-shirt. Everything I say, I put on a t-shirt.
No disrespect to anybody who had ghostwriters because I know it's hard to write. I've learned it was one of the hardest things I ever did. And I know some people battle with literacy. They don't come from the best neighborhoods. They don't have the best education. Don't come from the best economic situations. I didn't mean neighborhoods. I love my neighborhood where I grew up, where we bought beer with food stamps. But I wrote my book. It was a challenge. It was something I decided that I was going to do. I was offered the opportunity to have somebody to help me write it. And I decided that I wanted to do it myself because I don't feel like I can call myself a writer if I'm not doing the writing. Like even with my TV show that I had in development prior to the strike, I was writing it by myself, which I was very thankful to the people at Showtime for giving me that opportunity to just write alone. But I wrote it myself, and it is. The funny thing is when we were in the makeup room, she called it the illegitimate kid.
The illegitimate child.
The illegitimate child. Illegitimate?
Yeah.
She was like, what?
No, but the reason why it's funny is because the book is about my search for legitimacy because I didn't have my father's last name. And when I met my father, I thought I was going to get the answers, and what I got was more questions. And so the book is really about the journey of me coming to myself after finding my father and thinking, oh, all of it is, when I find my father, I'm going to know everything that I need to know. And that was not what it was. And it's a very common theme of people who don't have a parent. And, this whole idea that the father not being in the home is exclusively to Black and brown people is a big farce. I've been reached out to by so many white people who saw my special and were like, because of you, I'm going to go talk to my father. I'm going to go find my father. Really? Yes. And white men, my driver in New York was like, I saw your special and I went to Florida to go find my father. Wow. Like it was this void that you feel. And within my community, having your father's last name was a one-up, like on somebody who didn't. And so my book is about, me thinking that my whole life, when I found my father, that I was gonna be whole again. And I was whole the entire time. That I got to go write a book that the women who were in my family, these Latinas, strong women that showed up for me, were doing all the things. And I just kept overlooking it because I was like, when I find my father. And in the meantime, my mother is walking to school to feed me because I'm anemic and she didn't know how to drive. And she would walk to school at lunchtime and make sure that I ate. Like I was overlooking all of those things because I thought that it was a man, and it's patriarchy that forces this idea that, being a father, they're always like, when somebody messes up, they don't ever say, there must not be a mother in the home. They always say, there must not be. this idea that men are more important than women extends even into that. And so I explore that in the book, and I just tell some stories, and some people are going to be mad at me because I told my true stories. I didn't lie about anything. I talk about my relationships. I talk about.
There is something in the book I want to talk about. You talk about there was a big show you were on, Last Comic Standing, and you talk about just, I guess, the pressures of how you have to appear on stage. Not the material, just the pressure of like people telling you what you can and can't wear. Do you want to? I battle with that too, because I feel like as a comedian, people expect you to kind of be, especially like, you know, we are women. Sometimes we put a little bit more thought into our outfit, but like I get a lot of criticism sometimes for like dressing up or like wearing a fur.
Before going on stage, you do?
Yeah, they told you to tone it down.
So what is it, like club owners are telling you, like club owners?
It's just the culture of comedy. Like you're supposed to not be just like distracting on stage. But I want to talk to you, like how do you deal with that? Did you just say sex?
You can't be sexy on stage.
Oh yeah, they tell you not to be sexy.
Don't be too sexy because it distracts from the So they told you to tone it down, right?
I want to know more about that in the story. Like, how do you feel about that? Does that still affect you now when you do your performances?
That's so funny because when the director and me that has been there for a long time, I storyboard everything I do. I storyboard every special I have like sketches. I sat down. I didn't even direct my own special, but I directed that bitch. I sat down. The person who made my outfit for my last special, they made a white jumper because I wanted to wear like something short. I like to wear my shorts with some heels. And it has the cutout is the Taino symbols from my great-grandfather's tribe. But I leaned into it after Last Comic Standing. Keenan Ivory Wayans and I had a difference of opinion. He said that comedy is not about distractions and you have to be, that's a very old school thing, but I think it's so funny that it's old school because when you think about older comedians, and not just Lucille Ball, who was a comedic actress, but if you think about like Lily Tomlin or Phyllis Diller, they were all dressed up. You know, like they were all dressed up and they would go on stage with a microphone and do stand-up. And you think about the men, they had on suits. So this whole idea that comedy has to be casual or that comedy has to be anything is just...
Where does that come from?
Projection. To me, it's projection because for me, what your idea of funny should be is what is funny. Corey Holcomb, who's a mentor of mine, who I opened for, he said to me, you can wear whatever you want to wear if you're funny. He was like, because if you host the Oscars, you're going to wear a gown, not a sweatsuit. Yeah. So you got to be prepared to be funny in whatever you have on.
So I kind of hate it sometimes when I get it from other women. Like, I've had some of my peers be like, oh, yeah, your titties were out today. I'm like,
I feel like it's
I'm like, bitch, I was in a rush. Sometimes. I had to do this set real quick. But I do, I think the most important part of comedy, like metaphorically and physically, is that you feel comfortable with yourself. Yeah. So if you do go on stage and you don't feel comfortable, that is going to show in the art. But if this is who you are and you're able to, it's who you are, then I don't know, like I just feel like you should just show up as your best self for the audience because,
But I think we do a lot of stuff for men. Because I was told about like one of the bigger comedian women, I won't say her name because it was given to me in confidence, but I was told that she would tape herself down and wear sports bras to like tone down her chest. Yeah. And I was like, we're doing all of that for men, right?
So they can feel comfortable.
Because we're always told that men think about sex every whatever seconds. And really it's insulting to men because it makes men seem like they are like the most basic animal to ever walk the planet. And maybe that might be connected to why we have a lot of issues in society. But the truth is that is to make men comfortable. You don't want to upset a woman that's with her husband at the show. You don't want to, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to be on the stage and do me and be me. I'm not flirting with your husband. If you are insecure and you are threatened by a woman on stage, you got bigger problems than me.
I never thought about that.
That's interesting, though. I have, even just sometimes when I go on a run, I'll be wearing a sports bra and I'll pass by like a couple walking down the beach. And I will legitimately sometimes just like look down, like not even look up because he's walking with his wife or girlfriend. And maybe that's something I've internalized. Like, I don't want to make his wife or his girlfriend feel uncomfortable. But I do that sometimes. Like, have you done that? Like when you're walking next to a couple, I'll just like look down or look away. I'm like, well, I don't want to make her uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe
We
I
do
should
I think that's
change
the way that we were
but-
raised too. Like when my mom was always be like, "Don't wear shorts in front of your
men.
sister's boyfriend," or you know, I'm always like very conservative, which goes back to like how did your background, your cultural background, influence your comedy? Because you also spoke about how you found yourself and you're comfortable within yourself, and coming from a woman that's, I mean, I'm 33, but I'm still like in that area where I want to be.
Jesus age.
Yeah,
we
Jesus
get the
is comfortable.
Jesus.
So if you have any advice of like how you got to loving yourself the way you do now, I know you've had a lot of experiences, you know, I'm curious what you would recommend for a young lady like us.
So I would say, first of all, it's important that I'm a creature of metaphysics. I turned to metaphysics when I was in my 20s, and I was like, I had to really learn to reprogram my thinking. I was very indoctrinated through religion at a very young age, and it didn't service me in the way that I needed it for me to feel whole and good as a person and a woman. So I had to be able to, I had to qualify it or even intellectualize it a little bit so that it could make sense for me in terms of science. My brain is subconscious mind, just like everybody else's, and everything that you feed it, your mind is always listening.
Yes.
When you're hating on yourself, when you're saying bad things, when you are, whatever it is. And so for me, I sat down and I started reading these books. Like I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I started reading, people clown The Secret now, but there was a time.
Yes. I was fucking with The Secret.
I
That
still
shit got
do.
me together.
But it's all true. I mean, even if it was commercialized, it really is about. I think that sometimes the powers that be will shit on stuff that does that so that it doesn't become popular. Because the worst thing that will ever happen to the planet is that human beings start thinking for themselves in reality, like really start thinking for themselves. But I read this book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And every time I bought this book, somebody would steal it from me. And I was like, there's something in this book. And it was just really about understanding it. I think that you have to silence the noise. We have really bad language when it comes to women and people now. Ageism has become such a big thing because it's profitable because, they turned it. It's another way to exploit women, telling you you're old. I was making a joke about being old on stage, and this lady that was older than me said, so, when you guys say that you're old, you make me feel dead. And I was like, she's like, you're letting younger people bully you into making you feel like it's over for you. But if it's over for you, what does that say for me? And I was like, I'm gonna stop saying that, because I see people on the internet, like when you see people that are teenagers getting filler and getting Botox because they're trying to hold on to something. And it's all about that's all an industry to make money. That really isn't about preserving your youth or making you feel better about yourself. It's about making you feel bad about yourself so that you can continuously spend money, right? Because the truth of it is that you cannot freeze yourself. You're not going to. Nobody is going to look at one of these superstar women that are in their 50s and 60s and say, "Ooh, you think she's 30?"
Yeah.
No, they just say, "Oh, the bitch look good for 60."
Gotta
That's
love
just
yourself.
the reality is that you cannot, and it's such a blessing. I grew up during an era where this didn't exist as much. It did, but not as much. I idolized my grandmother. I worshipped her. I looked at her like,
be a grandma.
but I was just looking at her like, wow, she's so beautiful. My grandmother was young, but I was just like, she is such a beautiful, regal woman. I had nothing but respect for her. And I was like, I want to be like that whenever I become older. So I think that people, period, are struggling right now because the commercialism and the consumerism in this world has become so toxic and horrible. You are constantly being given messaging that there's something wrong with you, that you have to disconnect.
How do you deal with
I disconnect.
trolling and
You disconnect,
and
yeah.
bullying?
I disconnect. So I have my days. Like some days I'll click back because I'm like, I know a dummy when I see one.
You respond?
Right? Yeah, sometimes I will respond.
Me too.
Because I've learned that a lot of people think they can say stuff because they don't think that there'll be consequences, right? But the other thing is, then you have to realize that sometimes people do that because they do want you to respond because they're trying to get some attention.
Oh, they love a response, even if it's negative.
Yeah,
because
they
noticed me.
Yeah, they're lonely.
You're giving them what they want. And speaking to like the ageism thing, I have seen a rise in podcasts, specifically like male podcasts. There's a couple other ones where they do really, really talk poorly about women that are aging. It's like, you're really only good in your 20s. You're really only good, or your 30s, right? You're really only good when you're, fertile. And then what? Then you're, and it is so sad. And you're right. Like,
well, that's because,
as a woman, it does get to you a little bit. You're like, wow, like that's really sad. So then what? And you're right. We need to bring back having love and respect for, and I'm not saying us specifically, but society, our grandmothers, our mothers who did so much. You sacrifice your body. You sacrifice so much of, if you do want to, have children, you sacrifice so much of yourself to raise children and do it in, as gracefully as possible. And it's really sad to see like people really just going in on women that are aging. And it doesn't make women want to age gracefully anymore. It makes people want to go and run to the Botox and the fillers, and they do want to freeze in time now.
And so it looks crazy.
I'm not getting any of that shit.
You're not saying
I haven't gotten any of it either. But listen, I don't know what I'll do because I have my moments, and everybody feels insecure. So I don't like to shit on women that do it.
I always think it's a preference, right? Like I feel like if you're doing, I say any decision you make sure it's from you and not from like outside validation.
Oh no, all the time it's going to be for it. But I will say this. I always consider the source. My mom had a really good way of showing that. My mom is so hood, and I would be like, "Oh, Vanessa said I was ugly," and she'd be like, "Are you talking about the crackhead's daughter? Are the crackheads? Do you let the crackhead's daughter make you feel bad? You scored this on the PSAT. How you gonna let that's how my mother's version of consider the source, which I love her for that. But I think that you got to think about like those podcasts when you look at these. There's a rise in lonely men. A scientific study about a rise in loneliness in men, which is why you see such a rise in crime and and femicide and shootings. So when these people who are doing these podcasts, they're feeding those men. They know there's a market for this. People call them involuntary celibates. Their rise in this alpha male men fighting for their masculinity. I was raised by 5 of my uncles who were men who never had to prove themselves men. They never had to label themselves real men because they did it. They showed their manhood through their actions. So when I look at these people, you have to always consider the source. I know a lot of women who are in my age range who are nothing but successful. I was married. I have 2 children. I've dated. I've broken up. I've never been in a moment in my life where I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to find a man. I currently can be in a relationship if I want to. I just choose not to because I don't.
I think in my early 20s before I started comedy, I was very like I need to be in love. I need to be married. And then I'm like, you know what? I actually have the privilege of freedom. And I can just figure out who I am before I get into that marriage. I think a lot of women, that's something that I'm kind of like exploring in my comedy, we end up in these relationships because we're told to be in them versus like, I know who I am and I'm choosing to be here. And I will leave you. The problem that I had before is I would never leave because like I can't lose my man. But now I will leave. I have a career, So I just think that I think that as women, we should stop being so... stop being so hard on yourself and be careful what you're consuming on the internet. There's just too much, and you have the option of programming what you want to consume.
Yeah, you have control of your algorithm.
The algorithm, that's the word.
Also focus on being whole, because the thing about women is that we're always put in this place where they're like your career or a personal life. You're more than just those 2 things also. I believe in being spiritually connected. It's not just about your career and the things that you have and the money that you have. I was married to a professional football player and I had everything I wanted, and I was the unhappiest I've ever been in being able to I was driving a $100,000 car. I had all the purses, and I was miserable. And then I lost everything, and I was unhoused. I had 2 kids. And I found comedy, and then I found joy. And now that I'm in a place where I'm doing well, and I can take care of myself and my family, my happiness is a very important perspective for me to understand that my happiness does not come from anything material or superficial. Nothing that I have, that I own, is more important to me. No job, no television show, no book is more important to me than my mother, my kids, the relationships that I have with my family and my friends. Because during the apocalypse, ain't nobody gonna care about your car.
Nobody.
But the thing is that we keep thinking, we're so self-centered and thinking that we get it right. The planet is suffering and is struggling. We have done so much damage to the planet, and it's very, very, just very self-centered to think that we are the only ones here and that we're the greatest thing that ever happened to the planet, when in reality, we're probably the worst thing that ever happened to the planet. The animals are probably conspiring a war against us as we speak. But, we just have to take things into perspective. People in Hollywood, and I know we got to wrap up, but I will say this. People in Hollywood will try their best to convince you that they're living their best lives. 99% of the time is because they're selling you something. They're either selling you makeup, they're selling you clothes, they're selling you makeup, a lifestyle. It is part of how they make their living. People who truly and genuinely feel good about themselves don't have to do two things. They don't have to prove it, and they don't have to make other people feel bad. People who really feel good about themselves make you want to find what they got just because of the way they're living their lives.
They lead by example.
Oh my!
They're just.
I needed to hear that.
Too. Like I feel I want to go through so much more. Before we wrap up, I know that we have to wrap up, but we talked about a lot. But I feel like there is a new generation of Latino comics coming up, and I feel like
Glory's like, back to me.
No, not even that. But I just want to make sure that we, as comedians, do you have any advice for anybody that wants to start comedy, that is in comedy, that just from, like, you have a wealth of knowledge, and I just want to make sure that they get, I know they tuned in, and we got a little bit of everything, but anything you want to share with anyone who's coming up?
And I want to add a layer to that, with now it being so, anything you say is so polarizing. It could be taken in a crazy way. And you said, you've had your own people come for you when you're just saying the truth. And I've heard that. It's so hard being a comedy. Anybody, even an online presence, you either say something political or you don't, and what's your opinion? Like, what's your advice to comedians that are now, or comedians that are now kind of facing that issue as well on top of that?
So what I will say this, when it comes to comedy and art, if you are in it to get rich, if you're in it to get famous, if you're in it to get a relationship, if you are in it for any of those reasons, you are never going to be fulfilled. The only reason you should ever pursue an art is so that you can explore it and express it in the best way that you can. Basquiat did not get a chance to see the impact that he has made on all of us. Our Puerto Rican Haitian brother who was excluded from the community because we are so anti-Black within our community sometimes. Like when you think, one of my favorite book is called A Confederacy of Dunces. Peter Kennedy O'Toole wrote that book. He wrote it. He got turned down by people over and over again. He killed himself. His mother, in grief, took that book to a publisher, and it became a bestseller, won a Pulitzer Prize. It became one of the best and most lauded books. Will Ferrell, Colin, all of these people have tried to option it to make it. I think Jim Carrey, because it is one of the funniest pieces of literature ever. Wow. And he never got a chance to see that. But his art lives on, his name lives on, and art to me is about legacy. So what I will say to comedians is, first of all, be yourself, because you are eventually going to show up anyway. So you might as well just show up as you. Second of all, find the joy in what you're doing, because it's going to be hard. Nothing that exists where you operate in high levels is ever going to be a joyous ride, unless you are a Hilton or, and now a Kardashian, you know what I mean? So that you got to be real about that. And I will say that, respect art, whether you're a comedian, whatever it is that you want to do. Ryan Seacrest loves being a host and respected it and kept going back. It wasn't just a quest for fame, but it was a quest for being great at what he did. And I think that a lot of people now want to skip, they want to cut corners because they want to get there. Fame ain't all that is cut out to be. A lot of people who are famous are miserable. A lot of people who are poor are happy. There is something in there that we need to figure out about where real happiness and joy comes from. And so I will just say, don't delude yourself into trying to keep up with the virtual Joneses, because everybody is fighting a battle. And, and we just, it's all fake. It's a lot of it is fake. And, even when people say, I have no makeup on, I want you to see they got makeup on. And they're like, this is my natural look. And they had their makeup artist do their face.
The no makeup.
Oh, the soft life.
So it's just like, stop. Always consider the source. If I can't give you anything, if you want to go to be great, go to what's great. And study what's great. And a lot of times what's great is not popular, not famous, and not super rich, but great is great. And I would be Basquiat any day over whatever high society artist was killing it during the time.
Thank you, Aida. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I will follow up. I have her phone number, so I'm gonna be bombing you. I'm gonna be calling you up. Like, let's
bring you back. Like, there's so many gems. I feel like I learned.
I loved it. It was great.
We're really excited for your book, Legitimate Kid. Legitimate Kid. I want to make sure that we edit the cover in this. I don't know how videos work, but make sure you bring it up here. When you guys post in post-production, it's a beautiful cover. Aida looks amazing. She's holding up a picture of her. Is it you when you were younger?
That's me when I was little.
Look at that. That's such a Latina thing to do. Does everyone have like a gold frame?
That was my grandmother's frame.
Right. I look at it every day in my morning. And also, Ariana DeBose wrote the foreword for the book.
Yes.
So that's super exciting. 2 Afro-Latinas killing it in the game.
Yeah, no, the book is a book of essays, and you're gonna find yourself in the book. I'm telling some secrets, I'm telling some stories, and it really is about the journey of my life. So you're gonna find Uncle Luke from 2 Live Crew in there. You're gonna find Keenan Ivory Wayans in there. You're gonna find my grandmother in there, and it's one of the chapters is called Pizza and Penis.
Pizza and Penis.
Yes,
not the whole your favorite.
You won't clap when you read it. But
how does this forward come about?
You won't, but the Ariana DeBose wrote the foreword to the book. Ariana and I become friends. She came to that show.
I was so you're a comedian. I'm always doing shows in the basement, but Aida took me out the basement. Said, let's put you on the stage. It was really nice at Caroline's, and I'm just doing my jokes. And I turned to her, I'm like, oh my God, is that? But I'm having I'm performing, I'm a professional, but in my mind, I was like, oh my God, it's like Angela Yee was there. Yeah. I was like, she's putting me all her famous friends. I don't know, But it was really dope to be there. We got a picture together, like. It's going to be framed in the museum when it comes later.
Nice. Yeah. But she came to the show, but she's a friend of mine. I've supported her. She's supported me. And I asked her I wanted someone that saw me professionally and in a different way that is also my friend. I think Ariana has such a special voice, which a lot of people don't know. She's a great writer and a very smart person. She also has a very distinct American journey, and I wanted to hear what she thought about it. And I asked, and she was like, of course. And she calls me mi reina, which is a very sweet compliment. And I really appreciate it. And she wrote it, and when I read it, I cried because it was you have such a bad you have such a bad impression of yourself. You've been told all day long, every day, what you do is live to try to talk yourself out of the negativity of the story that you've been told about who you are. And she dispelled it, in her story. The way she wrote it was not only beautifully written and poignant, but it was straight from the heart, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen written about myself. So I'm very thankful.
Thank you so much. Well, the book comes out?
So the book comes out on October 17th, but it's pre-sales now. If you know anything about books, you know that pre-sales is the most important thing when it comes to books as a Latina. And I don't want to push this Latina thing because I feel like we do that sometimes and pigeonhole ourselves. This book is for everybody. Yes. And it is really about, a real journey. It's not a collection of jokes. I'm not like, boom, boom. It's really my story, my journey, and how I went from being, someone who was living in an expedition with 2 kids to directing comedy specials for HBO, being able to write a book, and being able to take care of myself outside of a man.
Well, thanks for joining us. Another episode of Girl, Let Me Tell You. Make sure to comment and like and subscribe. It was a beautiful episode. Thank you so much. I'm Ivana Rojas once again.
I'm Jessica Flores.
I'm Aida Rodriguez.
And I'm Glorelys Mora. And we'll see you on the next episode of Girl, Let Me Tell You. Thank you.